on the same article of Sunday, September 15, 13, 2020, Freddie Kissoon, Claudia Singh, the 2020 election and the Region 5 mayhem, and I go on. Was it a random murder that the PNC zeroed in on to create a race war, to ensure it has a place at the post-violence settlement? Well, I would say absolutely. The aim is to economically stagnate Guyana. So nothing and nobody from Berbice can come, and then they have their trolls around justifying the beating. There's a man, one Branford Burke, and also Rickford Burke, but in particular now, in this case, Branford Burke, I have his conversation saved, in which he was saying anybody can pass, but not the Indians, and justifying that and justifying what is taking place against Indians. Now, I can't use the word Indian because some people seem to think that is an obnoxious word, even though I'm using in sympathy to the people and to teach them to keep away. Indians should keep away from traveling at that time, and also to try to set up as little protective units that. But this man here is pouring so much of nastiness, but Mr. Granger, nor Harmon, nor any of their trolls, except for a few independent Guyanese people, including Afro-Guyanese and Indo-Guyanese, have been criticizing the words of this man in the most, he has been speaking in the most vicious manner, actually giving pluck to those people who were beating, hurting, burning, and looting. So this is a terrible thing, ladies and gentlemen, and I, as a Guyanese, a citizen, belonging to a commission doesn't actually make me stymie my mouth or my mind from speaking. I have a legal, legitimate right to comment and to speak nicely, decently, for peace and for protection of peoples. Back to the article. Was it a random murder that the PNC zeroed in on to create a race war? I told you about that. Yes, one, create this race war. They thought the Indians would have retaliated. And then the government would have had to invite them in. And then they would say they want this and they want that. And because they were economically stagnating people by preventing their trucks from coming from Berbice and returning with goods, they were trying to create what is like a siege that is usually installed strategically and militarily on forts and places where people are defending themselves or battle is taking place, to prevent them from getting food, water, drink, or to allow them to finish off, and no money and no circulation, so that they could, in other words, surrender. So they could talk to the president and whoever and demand that we want this and want that and come out a hero because they are asked now to go and stop it. I want to compliment His Excellency President Irfaan Ali and his cabinet and the other giants, Mark Phillips and Vice President Bara Jagdeo, for staying the ground and putting an end to this, using strategy and intelligence, and to look out for all people and protect all people. But those who beat and hit, there is social media, those who hurt and burn, and those who use Facebook overseas in Guyana to excite and create situations of horror and torture. We need to put things in place to deal with them strategically. I think also the president should get, or one of his officers, the information together, collate them, especially those from overseas, and give it to the Secretary of State or his agent in Guyana, the U.S. Embassy, for them having to do with whoever is based overseas and are causing hate and pain. I'm asking those who are overseas, you made your mistakes, you committed your errors. My advice to you at this juncture is to apologize and call for goodness and peace, that we have a legitimate government, that mistakes were made. And this is the way to come out of this, and to probably not have sanctions unleashed on you who are Guyanese living overseas and sending these worthless messages, trying to divide our beautiful Afro-Guyanese and Indo-Guyanese, particularly beautiful relationship that we have had for hundreds of years. Back to the article. Some theories making the round are that it could have been unmitigated vengeance by drug people who the cousins had a falling out with. Another theory is that it wasn't an invention by political opportunists in the leadership of the PNC and AFC as the beginning of a protracted war of more fire, slow fire that was done sometime during another of their president's era. But I like the man generally, so I'm not going to use his name right now. Now back to the article. This is a cynical interpretation because it implies that the cousins were indisciplined. But then also they have a friend, and we saw a photograph where their friend Harish Singh, they would eat and they would drink together. I'm wondering if they stumbled upon this thing accidentally. And because of that, the information got out and the people wanted vengeance. Or if they probably were doing watch work or some caring or watering. I don't know. And I'm not putting my mouth to that because I don't know. But I know it's not about coconuts. And it's not about race. And that X usually has to do with gangs and certain groups, particular in Venezuela. This is a cynical interpretation because it implies that the cousins were indispensable, and almost also with our boy Harry Singh. There are definitely bogus stories out there, and I agree with that, and these stories might be bogus, that even crazy derelicts who sleep on the streets would not buy. For example, why would Indian people kill two youths as an act of race hate, knowing that their party won the election and their party is ruling, and in such brutality will bring vendetta upon the PPP. There you go. That is why I like this man. And why is it that intellectuals like, well, we heard Walter Lawrence speak against it. In a way, we heard James Bond speak against it. This is not who they are or what they are. But at the same time, he tried to, James Bond, I was with on the side, tried to belittle and humiliate me when I'm saying a group of people could protect themselves, but his leader is telling them that their response was right and nobody must tell them that they are wrong. He didn't tell them anything, even though he gave them some good piece of buck up for being poor administrators. Back to the article. Mr. Freddie Kissoon is saying, I simply do not buy that, and I am rejecting that perspective that it was some kind of a race hate killing, because their party won. Why would anybody want to do that when their party won and is in leadership? Now here, back to the article. Look what happened. It almost turned into a race riot. Surely the Indians who were supposed to do that cannot be that stupid. Yes, if the Indians did that, they truly deserve some good penalization or for stupidity to try to hurt people where they are the majority of the population and in the area when their own people that they voted for or believe in won the elections. It is total fabrication by the people who are funding this, and that is mostly Mr. Christopher Jones and Mr. Sherrod Duncan, who started the funding, and someone by Darren Wade. We have the videos, those who, it is easy to get, people have saved them to create evidence later on. I'm hoping that all of this could end and some apologies that could come out and some form of compensation, whilst compensation can never pay for life, and that people who suffered will be able to live with a little bit of dignity, but albeit with great pain for the rest of their lives. For example, the pain of the mothers of those three children who were murdered. Back to the article. If the boys were murdered in gang warfare and the PNC used it for an ugly power grab, or the boys were sacrificed to create a race war, and we have seen things like this, ladies and gentlemen, around the world, particularly in certain countries where things are done to create a race war or a tribal war amongst tribes and so on, so that their people could win elections and get the power. That is possible. But I'm not saying this is what has happened. If the boys were murdered in gang warfare and the PNC used it for ugly power grab, or the boys were sacrificed to create a race war, it has not worked out. But it has thrown the spotlight back on Singh, that is the election chairman of the commission, the chairman of the election commission. One must remember at all times it did not work because the PPP did not encourage their constituencies to retaliate. And nobody, nowhere retaliated. And all I did was to tell people, if they feel they have been threatened, to form a protection group with nothing more than a baton or some pieces of stick or a whip, and protect those people who are minorities in your society and never be an aggressor. What a beautiful, peaceful message to send. But politicians are known how to play with that. And I think Mr. Harman is using that to take the flak off his back, the pressure on him and his at least symbolic leader. And incidentally, the ERC has sent nothing out, has not invited them, and was actually forced upon to invite some independent persons to assess what they said. If the boys were murdered in a gang warfare and the PNC used it for a power grab, or the boys were sacrificed, okay, it has not worked. Back to the article. The PPP did not encourage their constituencies to retaliate. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is in the raw, so there might be some misreading and so on at times, and I have to correct it by going back to it. This is a message in the raw. Looking back, Singh could have prevented the volcano from erupting this month if she had done the right thing in March. Well, here speaks Freddie Kissoon. I know in March I noticed and I saw, and this is when I became a bit vocal on speaking the truth about the attempt to steal an election. And I echoed the sentiments of the entire world, including the United Nations, the EU, the United States, Canada, the African, Caribbean, Pacific nations, the Mandela Group of South Africa, the South American bloc, the CARICOM, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't say anything contrary to what they were saying. Dearest beloved divine friends and families, I have to speak the truth. It seems that, back to the article, that the precarious calm is settling in Region 5, but the placidity may not reach the hearts of some PNC and AFC leaders. All right, the calmness might not be appreciated and reach their hearts, so they might not be happy that the place has become placid or calm. That is the opinion of Freddie Kissoon and not mine. They may still be interested in fanning the flames of slow fire, mo fire. That is the opinion. He's saying they might still want to do this thing. Back to the article as we approach the end. What an ironic country. Who would have believed that when Ramjatan and Moses Nagamutu were victims of slow fire, mo fire in 1997, they would be involved in inciting a race war 23 years later. Well, I think they all have to face the tribunals that will be set up. And as a warning and a guidance to everybody, the newspaper says the views expressed in this article are those of the author and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this newspaper. And I wish to make it clear that the views expressed by me in my commentaries is the view of me, Haji Dr. Roshan Khan, and not the views of a commission that I sit in or any other institutions or organizations that I'm associated with. But it is in my personal capacity as Haji Dr. Roshan Khan. So no one, please don't misconstrue. May the peace, mercies and blessings God be with our country. May we have peace. May we have goodwill. May we learn to live again as one, and any community, be it Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, Indigenous, Chinese, white, European, feels threatened, please form your defensive protective group using sticks, a piece of stick like the size of a ruler, and a baton, which is legally allowed for persons to watch with. All watchmen carry a piece of a stick called a baton, or a piece of a whip. Ladies and gentlemen, but we want goodness, peace, and love to prevail, and that we must watch over each other, especially if we have a minority in our communities, whether we are African or Indians, who is the major population, and we have any minority. Do not harass the people, because you have been family forever. Watch over, protect, love, care. Your friend, your brother, me, Haji Dr. Roshan Khan, saying thank you for tuning in to this, the RK's Guyana Free Media in the Raw. Saying thank you and farewell, friends.